Hello everyone, it's Helen from Journaling Planet, and on the next day of my 100-day project I am going to show you how to create gorgeous craft paper using an old National Geographic and a very particular ingredient, this Citrusolve cleaning solution. I have tried to do this with other magazines. I have tried to do it with bleach, and I can tell you that it just doesn't seem to do anything. There seems to be a bit of a magic combination between National Geographic pages and this particular kind of cleaning product. However, I do recommend that you look online at the ingredients of this product and see if anything you've got in your cupboard has the same ingredients, so that you're not chasing after a particular product just to do some crafting. I wouldn't usually go out and buy an agent like this specifically for crafting, but I saw a video on this right when I started getting into junk journaling. Can I remember which channel it was? No, but I will look it up and put it in the description for you. And the results were just so beautiful that I decided I really wanted to have a go myself. So this is one of those rare occasions where I did go hunting for a particular product to do my crafting with. As well as a particular product, there is also some development time needed for this craft. I'm going to take you through the process, and then whilst it's developing on the new magazine that I'm going to put Citrusolve all over, I'm going to do a sample collage with one of these pieces of paper so that you can see how they might be used. Let's get started. So I picked this up at a thrift store for 99p, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to, in a well ventilated room, because this is strong stuff, I'm going to pour it into a little glass ramekin, and then I'm going to grab a brush that looks like this, or any brush that I've got, doesn't actually really matter, and I'm going to open the page and I'm just going to start painting the solution on. There's nothing specific about the way I'm doing this. I'm just trying to get a decent amount of coverage. I'm probably not going to put loads on absolutely every page because it will seep through, but I'll give it a decent covering on most pages. Now that you can see what I'm doing, let's speed up the process. Okay, you may have spotted as I was doing that I was largely trying to flatten out this left-hand page with the brush as I went, and keeping it as pressed down as possible and making the pages kind of stick together. And the reason I was doing that is that I think the best pages that I got from the last magazine I did, like this one, were from pages where the pages had stuck together, so there was not as much air in there. This is just a working theory. I have no idea if this is actually the case, but I thought I would give it a go and try and actively press the pages together as I went to try and get the best results. This now needs some time to develop, so I'm going to put it to one side to dry, wipe down my surface and start collaging with some of the other papers I've made from the last magazine I tried it with. Okay, I'm not going to overcomplicate this because I want it to be clear that these papers can be used in pretty much any project you want to lend them to, depending on the colour and the motif that comes out. And it is very random. That's something that I'll say about this. You don't have much creative control, but in a way, that's the reason to do the project. To let go of a bit of control, see what comes out of the project, and actually create something that is completely unique. If I have to go and buy Citrusolve and a National Geographic from a thrift store, by the time I've done that, I could have just bought some craft paper. So this is not about saving time. It's not even about saving money in this particular instance, although I would argue that you get a lot of craft paper out of your National Geographic. It's about creating something that's unique and is only going to be visible in my own junk journal. So it's going to be different from what other people have in their junk journal. So I'm going to take this, which I remember So I'm going to take this piece of paper, which I remember had some trees on it, and you can actually see some of the outlines of the trees still visible. So I'm going to go with that and create a sort of woodland themed journaling card. And I'm going to start by just gluing down a big chunk of this paper as the background. So I forgot to mention that I'm making this out of the back of an old greetings card, and I've covered the reverse in brown paper so that any personal messages are covered up. But just a reminder that you can use any stray piece of card as a base for your journaling card, including the backs of old greetings cards. So the next thing I'm going to do is look to layer up this background a little bit. I really like it as it is, but I want to introduce some green themes to kind of emphasize the woodland aspect. And I noticed that there are some green pieces on this other chunk of National Geographic paper that I created. So I'm just going to have a little play with some of the other bits and pieces that came out of my National Geographic and look to creating some woodland texture. So all I added to the original paper from the National Geographic was a bit of washi tape, a little bit of brown bag, and some stamped paper that was just cut out of an old scrap from a vintage magazine. So all reclaimed materials. So I'm going to let this dry, and I'm really happy with how it's turned out. I think the background, if I just pull it in really close, the unique background really adds something special and unique to this journaling card. And nobody has a journaling card quite like it. Okay, let's see what's happened with the other magazine that we soaked in Citrusolve. So these pieces have all dried off. It took about another hour after I stopped the video, so you do need to give them a bit of time to dry out. In that time, I don't know if you can see it that well, but I did go over the journaling card with some pink stitching that I think looks a little bit like pathways through the woodland. That's what it is in my head anyway. And the paint that I spattered across has dried really beautifully in this, so I'm really happy with how this has turned out. I'm particularly happy with the texture of the background, which I'm just bringing up as close as I can to the camera for you to get a good sense of how that paper really makes a difference to the overall feel and texture of the journaling card. So all in all, really pleased with how this has turned out, and such a unique addition to my journal. I'm now going to speed up and flip through some of the pages I got from the magazine I applied the Citrusolve to. I'm not going to go through absolutely every single last one because some of them are quite similar in their design, but I'm going to show you a sort of cross section of the kind of pages that I got. This one, however, is my favourite. Not only is the yellow colour so beautiful, but I've got this number still intact down here and some absolutely brilliant texture, a little bit of text still intact at the bottom here, but just beautiful texture across the board. So I'm very excited about using this. Probably not going to be able to bring myself to cut it up. I'll probably just use it as one giant journaling card and then add some embellishments over the top of it. So that's the first one. Let's look at the others. those of you who are paying attention over here could probably see that as I was turning them over, they also had some very interesting designs on the back of them. And part of the battle with doing this particular project is deciding which side you find most interesting. I just wanted to show you what was left of the National Geographic. As you can see, about a third of the pages, and this has happened both times that I've tried this, it just for whatever reason doesn't really take. The chemicals just don't seem to move the ink around in the same way. I mean, that's kind of an interesting page, but you know, it's not fully distressed in the same way the other pages are. Again, I might still use some of these because they've got interesting motifs on them, but it hasn't had the same effect as on those other pages. So just so you're aware, if it doesn't happen on all the pages, it's still considered a success because you've got, you know, a large chunk of the magazine has reacted to the chemical. That was just in case some of you thought, oh no, I failed. I hope you found this an interesting video. I'm not suggesting that you should run out and buy yourself some Citrasolve. You've probably got other things in your stash that you want to have a go at, but it's just something that I wanted to make you aware of in case you hadn't come across it before. It took me 2 years before I decided actually I was going to get around to having a go at this myself. So as I say, it doesn't have to be the number one thing that you do this week and you don't immediately have to rush out and buy the Citrasolve, but just knowing that it's something that you can play with someday, perhaps when you fancy doing something a little bit different. I mean, look at those colours on this, just really, really interesting. Just when you fancy doing something where you don't have as much control over the project and you want to see what you can get out of it, this is the kind of project that I think will work really well for you. So let me know in the comments if you've tried anything like this before with other, perhaps more easily accessible chemicals. Obviously, whenever we're using chemicals, we do always need to use a well-ventilated room, and we might even want to use gloves depending on the severity of the chemical. So do make sure that you're safe if you try anything like this at home. But for those of you who have tried it with other things or have found that other magazines react differently to different chemicals, please do let me know in the comments, because I find this kind of technique fascinating, and I do have a lot of old magazines just sitting around. So if there's something I can pour on them to get this kind of results, I'd really like to know about it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.